What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Shogi from Shook Earth Media, and today we're doing another tier list because I had fun with the Walking Dead one that we did of all the seasons. So I like the format. Let's do it again. This time we're doing video games I played in 2022. This does not include December, so check back in a month and we might have the Callisto Protocol on there. We'll see how I end up liking the game because I will be streaming it tomorrow, the first day that it comes out, December 2nd. And we'll be streaming at 8 p.m. is when I have it scheduled for, so I hope to see you guys there. And I got a new gaming channel too that I will link in the description, so eventually going to move all the gaming content over there. But until we get to that point, we're going to be doing some gaming content here still. But eventually, all of it's going to move over there. That's the thinking anyways. But now let's just jump straight into this list. So there weren't like that many big tentpole games that really stuck with me and resonated with me. I tend to be more single player focused, story oriented gamer. You guys know that I love TV shows and movies and stuff, and I love the storytelling medium of games. I like multiplayer games too. We got some on this list, but there weren't like too many huge releases for me personally, or just in the gaming industry in general. I think we're at kind of a low point. The one exception this year is, of course, God of War Ragnarok. However, I do not own a PlayStation, so I couldn't include it in this list. However, I'm going to cheat slightly because this game, God of War, the 2018 one, came out on PC in January of 2022. So, haha, you see how I worked it in there. I love this game. I highly enjoyed it. The storytelling is great, as well as the gameplay is really good. They're always constantly adding in new gameplay mechanics that you gotta, in all these different worlds. There's a lot of variety in the game. There's different combat strategies you can use, different weapons. And the presentation value is great. The story is really good. Combat's fun. I like exploring the world. So there's really a lot to like with this game. So for me, this is potentially the only S tier, like, must play game. If you haven't played God of War 2018, definitely worth checking out. So I can't talk about Ragnarok because I'm not looking up spoilers. I'm really looking forward to that game. So we're just going to go in alphabetical order for the rest of these, but just going through real quick. This is Aperture Desk Job. It is a new Portal game. Yes, a new Portal game released in 2022, and actually next week they're doing an RTX ray tracing version of Portal, so 2 Portal games coming out in a year, sort of. This game, it's kind of a tech demo for the Steam Deck. The Steam Deck is Valve's portable handheld console, and this game, it's mostly geared around showing off the features of that, but if you're a Portal fan, you're going to have a lot of fun with it. It's fairly polished for a 30-minute tech demo, and there's some fun little gameplay. It's not like anything to write home about, but it's funny, it's got good writing, and if you're a Portal fan, I think you'll like it. But really, for a free game that's like 30 minutes long, you know, it's really good, but I think it has to go in the C tier because it's not like, quote unquote, a real video game. You know what I mean? So here's another big release this year. I think it's been nominated by the Game Awards for Game of the Year. And this is another storytelling focused game. And this came out recently, and I gotta say, it's one of the first like games where I've been like, okay, this is a next-gen game, because this is one of the most beautiful-looking games ever, and technically speaking, it has some really amazing technology behind it. I mean, this game renders thousands of rats on the screen at a time, because it's called a plague tale, but it's a plague of rats. You'll see even on the G there's a rat here. So rats are the big gameplay mechanic and storytelling mechanic as well. You know, you're manipulating light. The rats don't like light, so you have to get through a room of rats. So that's one part of the gameplay. Another part of the gameplay is they've expanded the combat options. It's a stealth game mostly, but now you have more weapons and there's more options. You can set people on fire, there's more gadgets. It's basically a bigger, better game than the original one. It's a sequel, so it picks up story-wise right where the last one left off. Doesn't even try to catch you up, so you definitely want to play the first one first. But this game, it's got bigger environments. It's got more gameplay options. It's got some solid combat, like I said. So basically, and it's a very satisfying conclusion to the story. So there's a lot to like about this game. It's still not like a top tier S tier game, but I really enjoyed all the whole game. Insanely detailed, beautiful environments, and just very well designed and written and everything. It's got to go in the A tier for me. I highly enjoyed this game, but it's not like S tier, amazing. It's pretty close, but it's not quite there. Next on the list, we got Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. This is kind of one of the big blockbuster releases this year, alongside Overwatch 2 and stuff like that. And but unlike Overwatch 2, this does feel like a full sequel to the 2019 Modern Warfare, not remake, but reboot, basically. So it's a full sequel. It's got some new features. There's some technical issues with the game right now, but in terms of the content that's available, there's a good amount of maps, and they really focus a lot more on some of the bigger maps. So if you like Battlefield and dealing with tanks and weaponry and stuff like that, you're going to like this one. And of course, we got a new Battle Royale mode with Warzone, and they have a new game mode with that called DMZ, where it's like you're teaming up and doing contracts. It's less Battle Royale focused. You're not fighting other teams so much, but it's an interesting new game mode. So I will say I don't know if I like this game quite as much as the previous Modern Warfare, which I really liked quite a lot. But I'm enjoying my time with the game so far. It has some technical issues that will probably be ironed out. So I do like a lot of the new features. You can hang off of ledges now and shoot one-handed weapons. There's water on the maps. There's stuff to like about it. So I think it's a pretty good game, but I'm going to put it in the B tier because I don't think I liked it as much as the last Modern Warfare, which felt like a breath of fresh air for the franchise as a whole. So next on the list, we got a game I don't think a lot of people heard about, because there was, in fact, a new Witcher game this year. Gwent is the minigame that's in The Witcher 3. It's a card game, and they have had a series of games released based on that. They had the Gwent multiplayer game, which is fun to play, and then they had a single-player RPG campaign that it was really well done. It's basically just an RPG, top-down isometric RPG that uses Gwent as the combat system. So it's a really good game. This is a much smaller package and is more focused on longevity. So instead of a story that you experience, this is something you're supposed to play over and over again, and there's a progression system. And every time you die, you basically restart the level. And every level, it's just a map, and you're trying to get to the end point, which is where a boss battle is. On the way, you do fights, you unlock new cards, you get, there's like random events that come up and stuff like that. So it's a pretty simple design. I never bothered to go back and finish it. There is kind of a loose story to the game, but it wasn't really dragging me in. I did like playing a little bit of the Gwent, but it wasn't everything I hoped it was, but it was only $10, so it's a cheap game. It's worth playing if you're a big Gwent fan, but otherwise I would say try out Thronebreaker, which is an excellent game. So highly recommend that if you like Gwent and you haven't played it. Next we got, this is kind of a community-made mod for Half-Life 2, one of the legendary games that I love, and it's a VR mod. So it's not as polished as Half-Life Alyx, which is a full VR game, but it's a pretty well done mod. They try to add, reloading with the motion sensing controls, and you have to cock back the hammer. It's a little janky at first. Once you get used to using it, it's fine. Still, like I said, lacks the polish of Half-Life Alyx and other AAA, games made for VR, but it is a community-based project, so you got to give it some credit for that. I'm gonna put this in the C tier because it's good, it's cool, it's definitely worth checking out. But it's not pushing forward VR or anything like that. It's just a decently made port of a great game. So here we got, I decided to put this one on the list, Halo Infinite. Even though it technically, of course, came out previously, I just thought it would be worth checking out because it's a yearly game. It's supposed to be, this game was supposed to be the Halo that was going to last us 10 years, and they're constantly putting out new content, and this is going to define Halo for the future. It's been a big disappointment, a complete lack of content. Basically, we've had 4 maps added since the game came out, and now there's a Forge mode, which is a great addition. Don't get me wrong, I love the Forge mode. But as of right now, you can't join other people's Forge custom games. There's no custom game lobby browser, which is going to be a big part of me personally experiencing it, because I don't have enough friends playing Halo Infinite at this point. So hopefully I can remedy that. But there's some really cool maps being made by the community, and Forge, I mean, it should have been there from launch, though. It's really not gonna bring all that interest back into it until you can at least join other people's custom games. But yeah, there's just not been enough content for Halo Infinite to keep it going. And I like the root of what the game is. It's the gameplay's good, the guns are decent, and they've done some balancing that's been great, and the maps are okay. They just need more. It just needs more stuff, and it has technical issues still, and it's a huge disappointment to me. So I'm gonna put it in the D tier, just because I've been very disappointed with Halo Infinite. Halo MCC, Master Chief Collection, was my default video game since it came out for PC, which was 2019, December 2019, I think. I played it constantly. I still do play it. I went back to playing it instead of Halo Infinite because it frustrated me so much. Next, we got a game that I reviewed on the channel here, and this is Life is Strange Remastered, and I wore this hoodie because I knew I was going to mention this. This game was a complete train wreck, absolutely glitch-ridden, and it tries to add new graphical things, but really, in my opinion, they mess up a lot more than they make better. Not a whole lot is really significantly different. They're like, oh, we added facial expressions. Yeah, barely. I mean, they still look like zombies, though, and then they just jack up the contrast, so dark scenes are really dark, light scenes are really light. It really makes everything look washed out, and it's just a filter they threw over the game lazily. You can see the filter drop at certain points. There was crashing, there was T-posing, there was all these janky. The camera would change, and characters would like move just after the camera changed. So it's really, really just an inferior version to the original game. So that's everything you don't want in a remastered. It was rushed out the door because they sold it with Life is Strange True Colors, and they needed to have the game out so that they didn't get sued in the EU. So they rushed it out, and they haven't fixed it. So they've had a couple patches where they patched up some of the worst things, but it's still not in an acceptable state. So it is going firmly in the F tier, and I'm a fan of those games. I like the Life is Strange games, They're like A tier or S tier for me. So I like the Life is Strange games. Not that version, just buy the old one. Here's a fun game that you might not have heard of. Next on the list, we got Midnight Ghost Hunt. This is a multiplayer versus hide and seek game. So you either play as a ghost or a hunter, and the ghost can kind of take over objects and hide in them, and the hunters have various tools that they use to find the ghosts. It's a really fun game. It's very competitive. It's very silly. It's really action-packed. There's a lot of stuff that happens. It's not just you hide in one spot and that's it. There's all types of strategies you can do. You can throw yourself as an object at a hunter and attack them. You can smack them in ghost form. And there are all types of other abilities as a ghost that you can use. So there's a full class system, a progression system. I love this game. It's so much fun. It's a lot of laughter, especially if you play it with people you know. So I highly recommend this game. Unfortunately, the population of players is a little bit lower than I would like to see sometimes. Usually you can find a match, but sometimes there's just not that many people on. But I hope that changes, because this is honestly one of the most fun multiplayer experiences I've had all year, maybe even, in a long time. I was hyping this game up before it even came out. You can find a video on my channel. I got to interview the lead developer, and I'm just a huge fan of the game in general. So it's going in the A tier. Next on the list, we got Pentiment. This is a game from Obsidian Entertainment, actually directed by the guy who made the Fallout New Vegas game. He was the director for that. And there's some similar ideas here in terms of dialogue and different factions, because this is kind of a murder mystery game. It takes place in the 16th century in the Holy Roman Empire. So it's a very interesting setting. It's a time of change. The Lutheran Church is coming up. There's like this tension between the monasteries that rule the towns and the townspeople, and there's the monasteries changing its ways. It's a lot of interesting stuff, but really the core of the story is you're this guy Andreas who's an artist staying at the monastery. There's the lord of the area visits and then gets murdered. Turns out he has a lot of enemies, and you're investigating, trying to find the truth of what happened. And it's a really, really compelling story. You have to like reading to enjoy this game because there's no voice acting. It's a very low budget project. Only 13 people worked on the game, but it's an astonishing achievement if you love adventure games like I do. And choice-based storytelling, it's also one of the best at that. There's an interesting persuasion system where your dialogue choices will ultimately lead to whether or not you can convince somebody to see your way of thinking about things. And it's really detailed, good writing. There's basically custom character traits that you can create. There's some degree of role playing in this, and it's really, really cool, very emotionally compelling, really satisfying ending, and just a very compelling murder mystery story. So I absolutely love this game. It's not for everybody. You have to like to read. But after I was finishing that, it was like the end of a good book, where you're just sad that it's over. That's how I felt about that game. So I really love it. It's going in the A tier. Maybe for me personally, in terms of how I feel about it, it's like an S tier. Like I'm going to be thinking about that game, Pentiment, for years. However, I'm going to put it in the A tier just because, would I prefer it with voice acting? Yes, I would. So that it gets marked down 1 point for that, maybe. But, I understand the reality of the situation. Next, we got another adventure game. This one's Return to Monkey Island, which was a game made by Lucasfilm Games back in the day, back in the 90s. And the director of the first two games came back and made a sequel after 30 years. And it's excellent. It's a lot of fun. A lot of people have issues with the art style, but I think it's quirky. I like it. I like the colors and the contrast. I like the humor of the game, which is the center point of Monkey Island series in general. It's always about the humor, and it's very like self-aware, self-deprecating humor. It doesn't take itself seriously. It's making fun of a lot of things. It has interesting things to say about fandom, and it's just a fun game. Really well designed puzzles as well. So if you like point-and-click adventure games, this is really good. It's a very, very funny game. I highly recommend it for everybody who has played the originals. But if you haven't played the originals, you really they have a special edition with voice acting and animation in it, and you should just play the special edition of The Secret of Monkey Island to get into it, because this is a game for fans first and foremost. So if you're not a fan, it's not going to mean as much to you. Now we got another multiplayer game that was disappointing to me. We talked about Halo Infinite. This is Resident Evil, which is my favorite ongoing franchise right now. I'm a huge horror fan, and Resident Evil, amazing. Every time a Resident Evil game comes out, it's like Christmas to me. So I was really looking forward to Reverse because I like competitive arena-based multiplayer games and shooters and stuff, and I love Resident Evil. So the combination of those two is very compelling to me, and the game itself, it is actually good. It's fun. You play as any six of the six characters that you like, and then you get killed and you come back as a mutant, or as a bioweapon, as it's called in Resident Evil. But the truth is, it's similar to Halo Infinite. There's just not enough content in this game. This game launched with 2 maps, and they've added a third one since. It's just not enough content to sustain an audience of people playing it. And as fun as the game is, and I like the core gameplay loop, it's just not worth it investing your time in a game with only 3 maps. And, they delayed this a year. It was supposed to come out with Resident Evil Village, and they had all this time to add new stuff, and it launched with 2 maps. It's not acceptable. But I do like the game. I do enjoy the game, but it's got to go in the D tier just because of a lack of content. Next, we're going to move through these next ones a little quicker here. This is the Resident Evil Village DLC, specifically the story DLC with Rose. It reuses a lot of the same assets, so you're exploring the castle, a lot of familiar places from the game. It's a little bit different, though, because they make it way darker, and they have this different kind of oozy, moldy style to everything. It's like a hallucinogenic story, psychologically oriented. It's character oriented, telling Rosa's story. One of the better things about it, but in terms of gameplay, it's a lot more simplified of a survival horror game. It's kind of back to basics, where you only have a couple weapons. There's 2 weapons, I think, and you're low on ammo, and you don't have enough to kill every enemy in the game. So you gotta find ways to either get around or sneak around. So it's a game with just that core survival horror experience at the focus. It's not the action game that Resident Evil Village is. My favorite part of the DLC is definitely towards the end. There's a the Buenavito house in Resident Evil Village, which is the memorable horror section of the game. That, you know, with the weird looking baby thing, they did a really clever twist on that in this. It's, you go through the same house in a similar experience, but it's new and different at the same time. So I recommend it for fans of Resident Evil Village. If you didn't like Resident Evil Village, forget about it. But it's just short and sweet. Really liked it though. Nothing really groundbreaking, but I'm excited to see where the character goes from here. And the maybe final boss was a little repetitive, but not a whole lot to complain about. So I enjoyed it, but it's not like an A tier game because you know, it's just a story DLC with no new environments. Although they do have new enemy designs, which is key. It is key to have new enemies for a game where so many things are familiar to you. Next on the list, we got another horror game. This one is Scorn. We were waiting for this for a long time. It's a survival horror game, adventure game with really intricate puzzles. However, the standout thing about it is the H.R. Geiger inspired art style. It is one of the most unique looking games ever. I think it is the most crystallized video game form of H.R. Geiger's art style. It's disturbing, disgusting. What's it called? Typophobia or something, with the fear of holes. If you have that, don't play this, because this game is just wall to wall typophobia or whatever that is. That's all this game is. It's disturbing, it's disgusting, and it tells a really compelling story with 0 dialogue whatsoever. So it is deeper than just a gross out horror experience. It has an interesting, compelling story that I'm still thinking about and processing and coming up with theories about. So the puzzles are really, really great. The art direction is 10 out of 10. One of the best art direction games. One of the best looking games for what it is, even though it's not attractive to look at. There is beauty in it. It is very well designed. So there's I can rave about this game all day, but I do need to throw in that the combat is pretty weak. It works. It's fine. I've played worse in survival horror games, but it's definitely nothing to write home about, especially that final boss battle. However, the ending, incredible, and just the artwork they have at the end is absolutely awe-inspiring. So, it just artistically, it's an incredible project, and there's nothing quite like it, and I'm definitely never gonna forget it. So it's got to go in the A tier, but I was hoping maybe S tier for this game, but it's a little on the short side, and you know, it's definitely a niche product. It's not like the first survival horror game I would recommend if you're not familiar with survival horror. So that's just my opinion on it. Next, we got Signalist. This is another survival horror game, really good, retro style. It's basically Resident Evil gameplay plus the style of Silent Hill, with some similar music and similar monster designs. So you add those 2 game franchises together and then make it a retro futurist sci-fi setting with robots. And that's what this game is. It sounds crazy, but some of the best puzzles I've seen in a survival horror game, so it's definitely an emphasis on that. There's a lot of key items to find. If you're like me and you find that stuff really satisfying, piecing all that together, it's one of the best survival horror experiences of the year. Highly, highly recommend it. I will say the story, I had no idea what was happening. And I'm a guy who really pays attention to the story. I read every little thing. It's there's some good writing in it in terms of like the poetry and symbolism of it, but I have no idea what the game is about. Don't ask me. So that's an A tier game. I got a lot of A tier games. Like I said, no games that are like blowing my socks off, but a lot of solid, especially indie stuff. I love indie stuff. You know, these aren't the games that I would recommend to normies, but they're A tier for me because they're made for me. Let's be honest. Here's another game that it should be made for me, but it's just kind of okay. It's a side-scrolling puzzle artsy game in the vein of Inside or Limbo. If you've ever played one of those games, two of my favorites. I love them. This is just kind of a mid version of that. I would say it's firmly a B or C tier game. It's an alien invasion, kind of a Jules Verne War of the Worlds kind of thing. You play as a guy who gets separated from his family, and then he basically kind of inherits the abilities from it seems like soldiers who came in drop pods, and they gave him their special ability because they were about to die or something. And basically, it's like you can manipulate matter. There's like these alien matter towers thing that form. Your first ability is the ability to make them go away, and then you get the ability to make them grow again. Decent puzzle or puzzle design, but it's kind of a weird 2D 3D hybrid, and sometimes the environments you're gonna have trouble figuring out which way you're supposed to go. Like, it looks like it's blocked off, but you're just supposed to walk through that. Like, how am I supposed to know that? So there's that. The ending is very abrupt. The game's really short, and yet the ending consists of reusing the most significant parts of the game. Basically, before you get to the end game, you have to play through a summary of what you just played, which is really weird, especially in a game that's only 2 hours long, which it is. And then the ending itself is very abrupt, and you have to guess how to get to the good ending. There's just like a random codes that you have to make at the end. I won't spoil it or anything, but the way you pick the ending is stupid, and the story, it's just okay. So I like the art direction, and some of the puzzle design is good. But other than that, you know what? I'm putting it in the C tier. It was okay. But, you know, it's ultimately pretty forgettable, if I'm being honest. You know, you play it, the good thing about it is you play it in one sitting and then it's done. Next, we got Stray. This was a game that a bunch of normies played. This is actually the last game on the list. Stray, it's a good... It's not the cat simulator. If you buy this game because you want the cat simulator, you're going to be kind of disappointed, because really that was just a marketing move. Brilliant marketing move to get the normies interested. Really, this is a sci-fi, indie, very story-oriented game. Simplistic gameplay. There's not a lot of freedom. You're basically walking along, limited, linear paths. There are some parts where you can explore a little bit, but really, you know, it's mostly linear. It just feels like you're exploring an open world. But very impressive environments. I love the sci-fi story that they got going on. It's basically like you as the cat fall into an underground civilization that is only robots, and there aren't any people around or any other animals. But so the robots think that there aren't any animals or humans left, but there's a cat. So that obviously completely goes against their whole theory of existence, and the cat has to escape from this place that nobody has left in a long time. So it's a compelling story and some really detailed environments, and if you're like me and you like to soak in every square inch of games and really just see all the finer details of things and listen to all the dialogue, although you have to read the dialogue in this game, but I enjoyed this game. It's pretty good, really good environments. It's a good sci-fi game. But as far as the cat simulator thing goes, you know, you might be disappointed if you're looking for something a little bit more gameplay oriented with the cat premise. But I really like the game. Is it A tier? Looking at the games I have in the A tier, I don't think it quite measures up to that, although I did enjoy it. So I'm going to put it down here in the B tier. And I recommend it, though. It's a good game if you can get it on sale. Highly recommend it. So let me know your guys' list down below, what games you played this year that you really liked. And I hope to see you guys on the stream for Callisto Protocol tomorrow, December 2nd at 8 p.m. And I hope to see you guys there. With that, it's been your boy Shuggy, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching, everybody. Peace out.